One of the reasons that the book is the way it is, and you could see the illustrations, how realistic they are, that is based on my journalism background. I always write about facts, not fiction. So while this book is a fictional children's book, it is very much based on reality. It's based on my family's experience. The illustrator I hired, Chelsea Cooper, brought my family to life. I couldn't believe when I saw the first pictures that she drew of my dad. It is my dad. Linny in the book is a combination of my two daughters, Corinne and Alyssa. The mother in the book is me. Aww. So it's very much realistic. The language is age appropriate. I'd say for children 5 to 9, but even older. So that's where my journalism background comes into being. There's no fiction here.
Welcome to the Alz Authors Podcast. We're so glad you found us. We're the global community of authors writing about Alzheimer's and dementia from personal experience to light the way for others. I'm Mary Ann Shuko, a registered nurse, author, and dementia daughter.
And I'm Christy Byrne-Yates, a licensed educational psychologist, dementia daughter, Alz author, and coach focused on the sandwich generation. Please join us for bi-weekly episodes with our authors as we talk about their dementia journeys, sharing intimate details and painfully obtained knowledge to help others currently on that path.
We hope these stories offer you comfort and support as we strive to break the silence and stigma surrounding a dementia diagnosis.
May one of our authors speak to your experience.
This is the Whole Care Network. Helping you tell your story one podcast at a time. Content presented in the following podcast is for information purposes only. Views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the host and guest and may not represent the views and opinions of the Whole Care Network. Always consult with your physician for any medical advice, and always consult with your attorney for any legal advice. And thank you for listening to the Whole Care Network.
Hi, I'm Susan of Alz Authors. When I was a caregiver for my mother with dementia, resources to educate and offer support were hard to come by. Alz Authors believes in the power of storytelling to support and encourage those impacted by Alzheimer's and dementia. Custom Caregiver Collections is a customized collection of memoirs, novels, caregiver guides, children's books, and more. This collection of well-vetted books comes displayed in a beautifully crafted wooden tabletop bookshelf with Alz Authors branding. Custom Caregiver Collections supports our goal of bringing real books to real people in real places and are perfectly suited for senior care communities, senior centers, doctors' offices, memory cafes, and professional or personal libraries. If you or your organization is interested in ordering or building a custom caregiver collection, we can guide you through choices of books written in many categories to support your needs. Want to build your own book collection? Contact us at alzauthors.com/ccc to get started.
Welcome to another edition of Untangling Alzheimer's and Dementia. Hi, I'm Christy Byrne-Yates, author of Building a Legacy of Love, Thriving in the Sandwich Generation, and I'm so glad you're here. My co-host, Mary Ann Shuko, is away today, but will return on our next podcast. So I'm flying solo today. We have a great show today with another amazing Alz author. If you've ever heard me on the pod before, you know that as a former educator and school psychologist, I love children's books. Alz Authors has several truly inspired and touching children's books, and we are delighted to add Come Grandpa Meow, written by Carol Steinberg and illustrated by Chelsea Cooper. In many families, children are impacted by elders' dementia, And often parents aren't sure how to explain it or how to help them cope and deal with their grief and worry. Carol Steinberg has not only written a tender story about a young girl coming to terms with her beloved grandfather's illness, but she's added a whole section at the end that's full of research-based strategies for helping kids interact with loved ones with some form of dementia. So how cool is that? With beautiful illustrations by Chelsea Cooper, this book is a terrific addition to our Owls Authors family. Carol is an accomplished journalist who's written for many major outlets, including the New York Times and Success Magazine. Today you'll hear how she came to write her book, which is based on her own experience with her own Grandpa Meow. You'll learn a little bit about that clever title too, which I love, and how she's channeled her talents into the nonprofit world and continues to champion causes that support those in the battle with dementia. I'm also joined by founder Vicki Tapia, who was the acquisitions editor who read Carol's book and worked to bring her into our fold. But wait, that's not all. Stay tuned at the end of this episode to hear our mini-pod featuring Helen Bauer of The Heart of Hospice. Helen is a longtime hospice nurse and palliative care nurse. She owns and operates hospice navigation services and is the host of the podcast, The Heart of Hospice. Listen, nearly every caregiver I know has had questions about hospice. Helen has the knowledge, the experience, and the answers. You won't want to miss this special mini-pod at the end. As always, please like and subscribe to our podcast and our YouTube channel, and feel free to leave a comment or question. We love hearing from you. And now, on to the show. Welcome, everybody, to Untangling Alzheimer's and Dementia. And I'm Christy Byrne-Yates, and I'm here with Vicki Tapia, who is the author of Somebody Stole My Iron, and she is the acquisitions editor. And I'm here with also our new author, Carol Steinberg, who wrote an amazing children's book I've said before, I am a children's book lover, and she wrote a book called Come Grandpa Meow, Let's Fly. And we're going to find out a lot about that, especially that intriguing title. But welcome, Carol. Welcome, and thanks for coming to us today.
Thanks for having me. I so appreciate it. Yeah,
we're tickled. And so I also want to say my co-host, Marianne Shuko, is away today. So I'm flying solo. So here you go. But we are delighted to have this episode today. And I want to start with Vicki. Vicki, I want to ask you, as an acquisitions editor, you found this book or discovered Carol. And can you tell us a little bit about what you saw and what you found really intriguing about this book?
I was drawn in by the illustrations, for one thing. They're really beautiful. And just the whole basis of the story and helping a child navigate. One of the people they remember forever, their grandparents growing up and seeing the changes sometimes that's happening as well. The child is growing, but something's off. And this book helps explain it to children, helps them understand and cope with the changes that are happening, and help, I think, realizing their grandparent is still their grandparent. They may do some strange things once in a while, but they're still their grandparent, and they still need to be loved the same as the rest of us. And to encourage that relationship rather than trying to shelter the child and keep them away from their grandparent.
Yeah, which is always a tendency. Oh, that sounds wonderful. So, Carol, can you tell us a little bit? So I love that as an intro, and want to invite you, Carol, to tell us a little bit about your dementia journey and what brought you to write a children's book, and we'll go from there.
First of all, thank you, Vicki. I appreciate your kind words.
Of course.
So I actually wrote this book the week that my father passed away from Alzheimer's disease. It was sort of part of my grieving process as a journalist. I remember coming into the kitchen and showing the book to my mom at the time, and she was like in absolute shock. But it really had just poured out of me, the experience of it. And that was more than 25 years ago that I wrote the first draft. And honestly, I'm so glad I didn't publish it then, because I, like many others, really did not know a whole lot about Alzheimer's disease. So the book was really written a lot out of regrets, and it was tweaked over the years as I gained experience working at a local and then a national nonprofit organization devoted to Alzheimer's disease and care partners. And that made me realize how much I didn't know about Alzheimer's when my dad had it. And I really felt the need for children to understand what the disease is about, and that there should be a tool, a very realistic tool, thus the realistic illustrations, for parents to sit down with young children and explain what's happening to a loved one with the disease. So over the years, I tweaked it, and this final version was published at the end of 2024.
That's amazing. And I really resonate with the need to get it out, right? And that you were needing to process and grieve and come to terms with. But I'm so inspired by your ability to hold yourself back a little bit and then process some more. And then that you are now doing work with folks with Alzheimer's and learning more. That's very inspiring too. That's amazing. That's great.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. Can you tell us a little bit about what, did anything change from that original first draft, and how much changed, and what did you find that you needed to, were there themes that you wanted to change a lot of, or, that?
The themes really remained the same. It's really along the lines of what Vicki said initially, that we need to connect with our loved one who has the disease. We need to find ways to remind them that we still love them. And we need to send a message to young children that I believe in the person's heart, they still know who you are, even though they might be acting differently. And lastly, that we need to find ways to connect and foster bonds in new ways. It's still possible. What I tweaked from the book, though, is really the person with the disease. I think I gave them more respect now than in my original version. I remember the original version, I had something about my father's glazed eyes looking like donuts. And when I looked back at it, I realized how disrespectful that is. And that's one of the big things that we need to do, is we need to bust the stigmas. We need to fight discrimination. We need the world to know that people with dementia are still people. They're still your loved ones. They may act differently. And I hope I showed that in the book. What also remained the same is the underlying theme of Come Grandpa Meow, Let's Fly. My father would always meow and purr to my daughters when they were young, and to his other grandchildren when they were young. It was just something he did. In fact, all my cousins remember that he did that to them. This was pre-disease, continued during the disease, though. And Come Grandpa Meow, Let's Fly is based on a song that my dad used to sing to me and my siblings, and then to his granddaughters, his 5 granddaughters, when they were swinging on a swing. And the book comes full circle with Linny, the main character in the book, singing it back to Grandpa Meow.
Oh my gosh. I'm getting chills because I love that. I love that, just that symmetry, that what we're given from people who love us and are raising us, and that we feel such a connection to, that we can give that back. And that's just a beautiful ending, I think. That's lovely.
From a personal standpoint, the beauty to me of this book, too, is thankfully my grandchildren, who range in age from 3 to 9, have not read the book. I haven't given it to them because I feel that they don't need to really know about Alzheimer's now. It's not in the family. If, God forbid, there comes a point, certainly their parents or I would read it to them. But the beauty is that I sing the song now to my grandchildren on the swing. and they sing the words. They know the words. So I feel that my father is living through all of us.
Right. I mean, what a beautiful way of keeping him alive and keeping all of that going. That's terrific. Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about, for you, what do you wish you knew at the beginning of your dementia journey? And I don't know, I don't suspect this is in your book, but for you as a person who's been on a journey, what were some of the things that you know now that you wish you knew later that some of our listeners can maybe tie into?
First of all, it was a very long time ago, and I think things were very different then. I don't think Alzheimer's was talked about as much. I don't think there were as many resources as there are now.
Definitely not.
But even with that, there were resources available. There were some support groups available. And I wish our family had taken more advantage of that we had gained more knowledge at the time. And my regret is that I really didn't research it further. As a former journalist, I really should have, but I think we were so caught up in it that we just didn't know how to react and didn't know where to look. So that was one thing. The second thing is that I wish I knew then that there were ways to better connect with my dad. We did live in opposite states, in different states, but we did see each other quite often. And my daughters at the time always did family visits with us. And I wish that we knew ways to connect. The intergenerational activities that make up the second part of this book were included for that very reason, because people need to learn ways to connect. And that has so many purposes. One, for the person with the disease, they can enjoy life more. It improves quality of life. It stimulates them. It brings back memories. But moreover, for young children, it really helps them learn empathy and understanding and still have a way to connect with their loved one. And I wish I knew that then so that we could have enjoyed my dad more. I think my kids who were young at the time, 6, 9, I think they obviously still loved their Grandpa Michael or Grandpa Meow and still tried to connect with him as much as they could. But I think there were things we could have done better, and that's a regret.
I don't think you're alone in that, Carol, at all. I think every one of us has that thought somewhere along the journey, whether it's 20 years later, right when it's happening.
Very true. I agree with you, Vicki. And I was just going to say, too, I think I haven't spoken to too many people who were prepared for this when they suddenly found themselves being a dementia caregiver. And also that it's very hard to pull yourself out of fear, really anticipatory grief. You're already grieving.
Yeah,
and it's hard to pull yourself out of that if you don't even have a word for it or an acknowledgement of it. And so I think sometimes those, you mentioned support groups, I think those can help us. So for anyone who is currently in this situation, I think, a book like yours is so perfect for helping people learn about that connection piece. And I love that, because what we tend to do is we want to rush in and correct, because we think if we correct their thinking or their mismemories or what have you, that we're going to fix it. And really, we just need to connect with them, to that piece of them that is there, and be present to it. But that takes time and it takes awareness. And we don't always have that when we're feeling fear, feeling a lot of loss and grief. But so I think books like yours are great, and absolutely for kids to learn empathy. I mean, this is just empathy in action, right? And that's compassion, and that's amazing. I love that you have some intergenerational activities. Can you talk a little bit about what some of those are that you recommend? I'm dying to know what some of those are.
Sure. So the ones I included in the book as examples really build on the themes of the book. Lenny, the main character, for example, would do gardening with her grandpa. She would do other activities with him outside in nature. So one activity, for example, is gardening and how you could do things with your loved one. Another one is art and cooking and music. And all the research shows that these types of intergenerational activities really can help a person with the disease, can help stimulate memories. Again, improve quality of life. So they're so important. So I lay out some of these intergenerational activities as examples and also explain why they work, the research behind them.
Oh, that's fantastic. I think that's really key too, is having that, some researched evidence that can help people learn how to do something a little differently, because we're all like scrambling sometimes and we're learning and learning. So maybe things that we thought were correct 10 years ago, we're learning now, maybe I'll try it this way. So we have to be gentle with ourselves in that regard too.
Yeah.
There's never a point in time where we know everything. So we have to be gentle with the fact that even if 20 years ago we did it this way, here we are now and we know better. So we're going to do a little bit differently. But so that's fantastic.
And I think it's not only that we know better, I think the research keeps mounting on what can help someone with the disease, how care partners can respond better to someone with the disease, how they can take care of themselves better, and how even we can help possibly prevent getting the disease ourselves. The research just keeps going on and going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And on that point, if someone were to say to you today, my loved one or my person has dementia, what would you, thinking about the research or things you're learning in your work, what would you tell them?
The most important thing is not to face this alone. It's a cliche. We hear it all the time, but it is so true. So many people I interview who have the disease or care partners tell me that initially they want to keep the disease private. They're afraid of the stigma they're going to feel, the discrimination. But that really nullifies the support that they can get from other people and the knowledge they could get from peers who are in the same situation. So I think the first thing is, if a loved one has dementia, is take advantage of the resources out there. Research shows that care partners really underutilize the resources that are out there, and there are so many of them. That's one thing. The second thing I would say is to take advantage of support groups that are out there for the person with the disease and for a care partner. You could learn so much from others' experiences and lean on other people and be open about what's happening where you might not be if it wasn't someone who with the same experience. The other thing is to really be respectful of the person with the disease. They are still a person. When you're speaking, you need to speak to them, not address only the care partner. Mm-hmm. And lastly, the main thing, well, maybe two more things. One is that care partners really need to take care of themselves. Again, another cliche, the old cliche about the oxygen mask, put on your mask first before helping someone else. But it is so true because there's so many challenges you're going to face. You're going to get worn out. Every day could be different. Every minute could be different. Behaviors change. Progression of the disease changes. So you really need to be prepared and take care of yourself as well. And now my last is to be your own advocate. Whether you're a person with the disease in the early stages, be your own advocate, and care partners need to advocate for their loved ones. And that ranges from everything for asking for an initial screening about, do you have Alzheimer's disease, to speaking to your neurologist, I want a PET scan to confirm this, for example. Tell me about the new treatments that have come out to help people in the early stages of the disease. Tell me what resources are out there. Tell me about my insurance options, especially if I have younger onset, I'm under 65 and I don't qualify for Medicare. What are my options? There are so many things you need to learn, and I really think doctors' times is so limited now that unless you advocate for yourself, you're not going to really get the help you need.
That is so spot on. I can't even express how I really admire doctors for the work that they're doing. I feel like they are getting, sometimes they get the criticism because they may have missed something or they're saying no, but they're getting pressure from medical groups and insurance companies about the expense of testing and so on and so forth. And so it does mean that there may be a tendency to, no, let's put it off. But you as the patient can push, and that may not be comfortable. Many of us are conflict averse, but you're absolutely correct. I think it's that advocacy that we need to kind of push forward. And then, another thing that you talked about was, and again, self-care, of course, is something we hear about and we don't always know what it is. As a former school psychologist, I feel like sometimes when we forget that when we are taking care of ourselves and we have children at home, and they could even be older children, we are role modeling something that they can learn from. And we can have that conversation too. I'm saying no to this with you because right now I need this for me. And I hope that when you're in a situation where you're just spent, you remember this. So this is my self-care, is taking time right now for me. And you have that conversation just very clearly, and we're helping them learn another life lesson, even though it might be killing us to say no to something. But sometimes no is self-care. It's not always bubble baths, right?
I think self-care is also important, not only for the care partner, but it's also important for the children, especially, again, if it's younger onset in the family, there might be younger children. Mm-hmm. There are so many young carers, teenagers, yes, people in their 20s who are giving up so much of their lives to help a loved one. And they need to remember to take care of themselves too, as hard as it may be.
Right, absolutely. And I would say too, is to lean into, depending on the school age, the age of your child, is to lean into school systems and school counselors and let them know what's going on, because the grieving process, that anticipatory grief, is happening for your children as well. And so it's a family issue, and we have to treat all of it rather than, and you're right. I mean, I think the stigma is still there, and that's really sad and frustrating and can really inhibit our ability to intervene. So, Carol, I was reading a little bit about your bio, and it sounds like it really did change you in many ways. Can you kind of talk about how it's changed you, maybe your profession or your, avocations?
Well, from a very personal standpoint, I think I was always very sensitive, but I think I'm even more sensitive now to other people, especially people with the disease. Mm. That's one thing that I've gotten out of this experience. From a profession, it's been an unbelievable change for me. I was a successful journalist for many years. I wrote for major publications about myriad topics. And when my father passed away from the disease, I was planning to continue my journalism career, but it was serendipity that I saw an ad for a public relations job at a local Alzheimer's organization. And I went on the interview just like this to see what would happen, was hired pretty much on the spot, and worked for this local organization. And we grew that local organization into a national Alzheimer's organization. And I was an executive for about 15 years, gave up my journalism career. So it really changed the trajectory of my entire career, that now I was giving back to people. And most of all, I was learning more and more and more. And I think one of the best parts of my career as a nonprofit executive was really being in contact with people with the disease and care partners. And it is very rewarding. I then worked for some other nonprofits and then came back full circle. I'm now writing a newsletter for a relatively new Alzheimer's organization, Voices of Alzheimer's, which advocates for patients with Alzheimer's and related dementias and their care partners. And again, the best part of that is I get to interview people with the disease and care partners, and it has opened my eyes even more.
Wow.
Yeah. That's spectacular. Thank you for that. So, Carol, that's just really fascinating that it really did have such a huge impact on your life and then led you into another space where you're finding, a way to contribute. But also, it sounds like it's really made a huge difference for you as a person. And how has this impacted you as a mother or as a grandmother then? These changes or focus?
Being a grandmother has definitely given me a new perspective. There's no doubt. Everyone says it's the most wonderful thing, and it is. I have to admit, it is an absolute blessing. And having had Alzheimer's in my family, I feel like I do sometimes sit back and just observe. I've always been an observer, and I think that's because of my journalism background, but I sit back now and look at my grandchildren, what they're doing, and try to really take it in and absorb it. Because Alzheimer's is always on my mind, because I'm dealing with it every day in my professional life. I always have that fear. Is it going to happen to me? Is it going to happen, to one of my relatives? It is such a constant presence in my mind that I try to really be as much as I can with my daughters and my sons-in-laws and my grandchildren, and really take it in and really hope I'm giving them memories, and they're going to, like just the song that influenced my book. I get chills when they sing the song. It's just something that I hope they always remember.
Yeah, that's terrific. That's so beautiful. And one question I had is around, so you were a journalist, and I'm not sure what kind of focus you had, if you had a particular area that you were chasing down. Did you have were you a news person, or you were lifestyle? What kind of journalism were you focused on?
It was a lot of business reporting.
Okay.
There was a few years where I was a specialist in writing about franchises. Mm-hmm. But I wrote for the New York Times Long Island section, and for that publication, I really wrote about anything and everything.
Got it.
From the emergence of walk-in clinics at the time, to fishermen on Long Island, to support groups for new mothers, to fundraising, everything.
Okay, great. So my question is, that's a very specific kind of writing and way to tell a story. And now, as a children's book author, there's a little bit of a difference in being a children's author. How did you make that change? And as an author, as a writer, how was that experience for you?
I love that question. First of all, one of the reasons that the book is the way it is, and you could see the illustrations, how realistic they are, that is based on my journalism background. I always write about facts, not fiction. So while this book is a fictional children's book, it is very much based on reality. It's based on my family's experience. The illustrator I hired, Chelsea Cooper, brought my family to life. I couldn't believe when I saw the first pictures that she drew of my dad. It is my dad. Mm-hmm. And Linny in the book is a combination of my two daughters, Corinne and Alyssa. The mother in the book is me. Aww. So it's very much realistic. The language is age appropriate. I'd say for children 5 to 9, but even older. So that's where my journalism background comes into being. There's no fiction here.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. Yeah, that's just a wonderful way for anyone out there who's reading or writing, to understand how a book evolves and how it becomes this piece of art, and also a piece of communication that can help us. So that's amazing. I love that. Thank you.
Now, I would say the intergenerational section, the part 2, is also really an outgrowth of journalism because it's very much based on research.
Yeah, yeah, that's fantastic. Were there particular research entities that you went to, or other professionals in the Alzheimer's world that you connected to find some of those resources?
It's really just a matter of doing research, which is so easy now online. Mostly peer-reviewed scientific journals is what I look to.
Excellent, excellent. I would really love to hear a little bit of the book. If you have a piece that you could read for us, I think we would love to hear it. And if there are any other illustrations you want to try and share with us, that would be great too.
Great. I appreciate it. So my intro to this section that I'd like to read is, as I said, the book is about a little girl, Linny, who has a wonderful connection with her Grandpa Meow, but she starts to notice changes in him and in his relationship with her. And it really, really hit home when he couldn't remember who she was. And he expressed anger at it, and that was very confusing to her. So the goal of the book is really to take out some of the confusion and fear that young children face. So this is when Linny really realizes something is wrong. This is not my grandpa who used to act the way he did with me when we planted tomatoes and when we, pushed me on the swing, etc. So this is Linny speaking. I jumped off the swing and ran through the grass to Mommy as fast as I could. My face was slippery from crying. Mommy's was too. She rocked me in her arms and snuggled her nose into my curly hair. It's all right to be scared, to be sad, she said gently. In a sweet, loving voice, Mommy told me more about Grandpa's forgetfulness. Grandpa has Alzheimer's disease, she said. That's why he has been more and more forgetful. When people have this disease, their brain slowly stops working. First, someone may forget little things, like what was for breakfast. Then the person may forget how to do everyday things, like brushing teeth or getting dressed. The person might act cranky or frustrated and might not recognize people or places. I bit my lip. Is that why Grandpa didn't know who I was? I asked. Yes, my darling girl, Mommy said softly. Grandpa is having trouble with his memory, like how to fix your toys, where to find the tomato cages, or even who our family is. He may be confused. His behavior may change. He may say things that hurt you. And if he does, you must understand that it's not really Grandpa saying these things. It's the disease talking.
Oh, yeah.
That day, Mommy also told me something else very important. Sometimes Grandpa will remember your name. Sometimes he will even remember other things that may surprise you, she said. These moments will come and go like flickers of light in a dark tunnel. They will be moments to treasure. Most of all, I think that in his heart, he will always know that you're his Linny. I leaned my head on Mommy's lap. Is Grandpa going to get better? I asked. Mommy hugged me gently. This is something Grandpa can't fix, she said sadly. We need to be very patient with Grandpa, just like Grandma is, and we can try our best to help him remember how much we love him.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Thank you so much.
And I get choked up when I read it because, as I said, it is so much my family's experience.
Yeah, yeah. Now, this was, your father was ill, 25 years ago, you said? About that?
He passed away more than 25 years ago in 1997. I'd say he had Alzheimer's disease for, I'd say about 12 years, but about 7 years from diagnosis.
Okay. And your daughters were young at that point, right? Yeah.
They were in elementary school and middle school when he passed away.
Yeah. So have your daughters read the book or given you any feedback?
My daughters read the book. They did really like it. They did feel it hit home.
Yeah.
There were conversations about who does Linny look like? Does she look more like my older daughter or my younger daughter? But the illustrator promised me she did make it a combination of both. And they thought it really did tell the family story. And they did feel like I wanted it to feel that it was really also a dedication to my mom, who, when I look back, was just such a selfless and heroic caregiver, because she really did not take care of herself. She really was with my dad till the end.
I'm so sorry. That is the other side of a lot of this, is the tragedy that befalls spouses and many times adult children, and how their lives are changed sometimes. So I'm so glad that we're talking more about this, and that Al's Authors is putting out books to support people. And that's how I think your book can really help so many, is how to have these conversations. And sometimes, we say they're children's books, but these are for us too. I don't know, Vicki, did you feel like that when you were reading it? And
I did.
Yeah.
I did. And I was just so happily surprised by the ending. It was unlike any other children's book that we, to date, have brought on board.
With the activities, you mean, the intergenerational activities?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I love that piece, because I think we do talk, we tell a story, but sometimes we say what not to do, but we don't know how to tell people what to do.
And that was striking in this book. It was like, oh, it's not just telling you all the things that are wrong and what you've lost. It's giving you a path forward to still stay connected.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that that's what you got out of the book, because that was really an intent. Someone has the disease. Now what? Mm-hmm. What do we do about it? How do we explain it to our young children? And how do we foster that connection moving forward? And that is the point of the intergenerational activities. I also love, Christy, that you noted that it's a book that we as adults could read. And that's why its availability on Amazon is only in print. I did not want a digital version, because I want, you saw the picture of Linny in her mom's lap. That's what I envision. I want someone sitting on their parents' lap or their grandparents' lap and reading that story together, and allowing the child to then ask questions.
Yeah.
No, I agree with you.
Yeah.
I think it has to be a physical in your hand book to get the most benefit.
Absolutely. And I think, too, that's reading with children is, we think of it as, this is so good for children, and it is. I can tell you, as a school psychologist, it is amazingly important. It's also important for us as readers, as parents. Sometimes we get caught up in our daily life and what we're doing. We may be working full time. We may be doing a lot of things, but we sit down to read a book with our child, and they all have little lessons. They all have little ideas, and we have to, it's a way for us to remember some of the basics. And so I think that the act of reading with children is so much more than just, trying to build a reader. It's about connecting and telling stories and asking those questions. So the interactive pieces too, I think, are probably something that are unique and so needed, because, oh my gosh, we can say forever and ever, do these things, but until we make them concrete and give them some, illustration of what to do.
Right. Yeah, totally. I believe you're right on, Christy.
Yeah. You had so many lovely, I'm looking at your reviews on Amazon, and you got some wonderful endorsements from the great Teepa Snow and some other amazing ones. And so I think it's definitely resonating, and that's what's really important, I think. What are you finding now? Like, how can people find you, number one, but what are you finding now, the reception you're getting when you're hearing from people, and are you doing book talks?
Well, as you said, on Amazon, it is a 5-star rating, which I'm very grateful for. And I'm really grateful for the testimonials that I did get from such dementia care experts who are renowned. Teepa Snow, as you mentioned, Danny Potts, the neurologist, Jim Taylor, the CEO of Voices of Alzheimer's. And I think most importantly, Rebecca Chop, who has written a book and who has Alzheimer's disease, to get a testimonial from her to say it's stigma busting, to say she has one word, wow, for the book, has just meant so much to me that it resonates with someone with the disease, that I've hit it home with them. So I am really thankful for that. Also, the teachers, and you mentioned a psychologist, psychologists who have read it have noted that they feel it's sensitive and powerful and realistic. And again, that's what I wanted the illustrations by Chelsea Cooper to be, really realistic. Yes, children connect with books with bears and with ducks and with monkeys, etc. But this is a real disease with real people, and that's what I wanted my illustrations to convey. The bonus is that it's my family who were illustrated, but that's just because it's based on my family experience. But the point is that it's showing reality.
Yeah, yeah. Are you, so can you tell us where people can find you? Do you have a website for the book or anything like that?
So they can find me on Instagram under by Carol Steinberg, BY Carol Steinberg. I'm also on LinkedIn, Carol Steinberg. The book is available on Amazon, print version, as I said. Could type into the search engine, Come Grandpa Meow, Let's Fly, or look under children's books for it. I have connected with Alzheimer's organizations. Voices of Alzheimer's has been very generous in promoting the book, and I am donating a percentage of sales of the proceeds to Voices of Alzheimer's, because I think it's a very needed and really, really well-run advocacy organization, which has a lot of resources like other organizations that people should reach out to.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's great. That's wonderful. That's fantastic. And of course, it's available at alzauthors.com, and you're now an Alz author, and it's terrific that you are, we just want to welcome you as part of our family. And
I so appreciate it, really.
Yeah,
I think that you're doing great work, and I appreciate that.
Well, we thank you. Thank you for saying that. We and Vicki as a founder, I know just never imagined we'd be where we are today. It's and we're celebrating our 10th anniversary this year. So we are definitely about reading and about writing and about really helping others through this process. I just want to say, Carol, thank you so much. And for everyone listening, Alz Authors is a nonprofit, and we are here to shine a light on our authors, and we're just so excited to have Carol be a part of our family. And thank you all so much. I really appreciate you both being here. And this was
Thank you
really
so
fun.
much. And again, thank you for what you do.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, everyone. Thanks for staying with us. We are now going to talk with Helen Bauer from The Heart of Hospice, and we're going to learn more about what she does. So welcome, Helen.
Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here with you guys.
Well, we're thrilled to be here with you as well. And you have a podcast, The Heart of Hospice, that talks about all things to do with hospice and end of life. You want to tell us a little bit about your podcast?
The podcast launched with me and my co-host, who was also a colleague of mine in hospice care. We got tired of hearing people say, I wish we had known about this sooner, and about all the different aspects of hospice and hospice care. So we thought, what better than a podcast to launch to get affordable, because it's free, portable, accessible information out there to people. So we will enter season 10 at later on this year, 2025. And we have over 550 episodes, a huge library of information. We talk about everything from hospice philosophy to the practicalities of end-of-life care, caregiving and those challenges and some solutions, grief and bereavement, anything related to death and dying.
That is so fabulous. And really, I can relate to that, right? You probably most people aren't researching hospice and what it's all about until they need it. And then they might not have the bandwidth to really figure out a lot of things. So how wonderful that you have. And I love it that it's a podcast and it's portable, it's on demand, it's not having to tune in at a certain time. So that's fantastic. And congratulations on 10 years. That's terrific.
Thank you. Yeah. It's a labor of love, for sure.
Absolutely.
We understand that.
And a little bit about you. You are a hospice nurse, correct?
Yes, I'm a hospice and palliative care certified nurse. I've been working in hospice for 15 years, and I'm getting a little embarrassed to say how long I've been a nurse because I've been a nurse almost 35, 36 years.
Oh, it's a badge of honor. My goodness, that's fantastic.
Yeah, the gray hair was well earned.
Yeah. Well, this is terrific. And where can our listeners find your podcast?
You can find the podcast on any of the podcast platforms, the mainstream platforms where you listen to a show. You can also find us on theheartofhospice.com and just click on the podcast tab and it'll take you. You can access all the shows. The great thing is you can search by subject. So if you're looking for dementia tips, if you're looking for what end-stage Alzheimer's might look like, or what grief and bereavement resources might be out there, you can just search and it'll pull up those podcasts for the topic you're interested in.
Oh, that's terrific. That's very useful. That's terrific. Do you have anything you'd want listeners to know about why learning more about hospice will help their interaction with their hospice agencies and their community? How will knowing more about this be beneficial for them? Like, what are some of the things you've seen come across either in your podcast or in your profession, like the confusions that can be maybe demystified by listening to some of your episodes?
One of the biggest jobs as a caregiver for somebody with an end-stage illness is advocacy. And advocacy looks like 100 different things. It looks like communication. It looks like coordination. It looks like financial management. It looks like protection, all sorts of things. So the podcast provides all of that. A little bit of advanced care planning. We talk about that. And being able to feature those resources to hand to a caregiver and say, hey, you may be already knee deep in this, but here's one little tip that might help you get through the next step. Or here's a little hint about communicating with your hospice team. So it streamlines the communication and eases the coordination, and it makes your job a little bit easier.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's really key because, as you know, when people are interfacing with their hospice agency or even their care team for their person, our brains aren't necessarily working at 100% at that point because of our emotions are coming in, clouding our judgment. We're worried. And I'm sure you find people who are very resistant to what's happening, right? Like,
sure.
And maybe they get confused between palliative care and hospice care. And I'm sure that comes across your profession a lot.
It does. I mean, the healthcare system in general in the United States is confusing. It's very complicated. And a lot of these folks have been dealing with a serious illness like Alzheimer's or dementia for years before they hit an end-stage situation and are having to have a conversation about hospice. I am a firm believer that knowing in advance helps. You're forewarned so you can be prepared a little bit better. I'm a proactive information gatherer myself. And I think knowing in advance about what choices are out there for hospice, what that kind of care would look like, goes a long way. These caregivers are tired. They may be financially strapped. They may be grieving. And there's such an assumption of you're caring for a loved one when maybe, in fact, you're not even caring for somebody you really like all that much. Somebody that you've had a bad relationship with or been distanced from. So I think having that information when you're sort of in the thick of it, even if it's just one thing to make that moment easier, it helps.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's very important. Well, thank you so much. Is there anything else that you want our listeners to know about you, about your company, about your podcast that we need to share?
I also have a company called Hospice Navigation Services, which is a service that offers a free 30-minute, basically not counseling session, but informational session for anybody who needs information about end-of-life care. We also offer a fee-for-service 60-minute session for anybody needing information about hospice, end-of-life care, talk about advanced care planning, or maybe they need to troubleshoot the hospice care they are already getting to find out how they can get the most out of it. Our goal and our mission at the navigation services is just to help people get the best hospice experience that they can.
Oh, that's terrific. That is terrific. I think that navigation assistance is really so beneficial for folks who might not feel comfortable, and they might not know how they can push back, or even if they could change agencies or persons or whoever. So thank you. That's fantastic.
Thank you.
And I do want to add that the Heart of Hospice podcast is one of our sister podcasts with the Whole Care Network. So
That's
at the
right.
Whole Care Network, you'll find a number of extremely helpful podcasts for you as a caregiver. So we invite you to join that, take a look at it.
Yeah. And well, this has been so wonderful. And I feel like as a sister podcast, helping our listeners who are walking this dementia journey, knowing that at some point we're going to get here. We're going to get to where you are and what your podcast is helping with and what hospice and end-of-life care is all about. And that's really, I'm with you 100%. I feel like forewarned is forearmed. You can, do the intellectual before you are in the feelings, and then you can maybe glide through it a little differently. So that's terrific.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for listening to Untangling Alzheimer's and Dementia, an All's Authors podcast. For more details on this episode, please see the show notes. If you enjoyed the podcast, please leave a review and subscribe to it on whichever platform you use to listen to your favorite podcasts. For more information on All's Authors, please visit allsauthors.com. While you're there, be sure to browse our online bookstore, where you will find hundreds of carefully vetted books on Alzheimer's and dementia. You can also find us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Please email your thoughts on the podcast to allsauthors@gmail.com. We are a 501c3 charitable organization, totally reliant on donations to do what we do. If our authors' stories move you, please consider contributing to our cause. Remember, you are not alone. One can sing a lonely song, but we chose to form a choir and create harmony.
Hi, I'm Jean Lee from All's Authors. All the resources we offer at allsauthors.com, including this podcast, are brought to you free of charge. Our management team is a dedicated group of passionate volunteers who earn no financial compensation. But to continue our mission to provide valuable resources to dementia caregivers, we need the support of listeners like you. If you'd like to support us, please make a donation at allsauthors.com/donate. We are a 501c3 organization. Remember, you are not alone.